Coming up today on Retirement Made Simple, you've heard the saying before, it's not what you make, it's what you keep that counts. Today, Jeff is here to discuss key strategies to help you preserve your wealth for your future and for those you love. Plus, you'll walk away from today's show with actionable steps you can take today to potentially help make a difference for your financial future. Retirement Made Simple starts right now.
This is Retirement Made Simple with E.A. Buck. E.A. Buck focuses on finances, preservation, and retirement. Led by Chief Executive Officer Katie Buck and Chief Investment Officer Jeff Buck, E.A. Buck helps you grow and preserve what you've worked a lifetime to build. Each week, Katie and Jeff help you tackle some of the biggest challenges in retirement, including retirement planning, retirement taxes, wealth management, Social Security, and navigating federal benefits. Welcome to Retirement Made Simple.
Thanks for joining us today. I'm Amy Sharp here with Jeff Buck of E.A. Buck Financial Services. There are some key strategies you might want to consider implementing to help you preserve your wealth from higher taxes, sky-high long-term care costs, and even the erosive nature of inflation. After today's show, you'll have a better understanding of the financial risks you might face in retirement and ways to address them. And here to do that for us is Jeff. Good to be with you, as always.
Thank you, Amy. It's great to be here.
Let's get right to our topic today. The big idea includes some key strategies to help you protect and preserve your wealth. Jeff, spell it out for us.
Yeah, the big idea today that we want to talk about is really preservation, both the value of preservation prior to retiring and then the importance of preservation during retirement. There's a statement by Benjamin Franklin that goes along the lines of an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's kind of interesting when you think about that, because what that really means is a little precaution before a crisis can make it a lot more preferable than fixing everything after the crisis.
Sounds like good advice.
Kind of fascinating when you think about it, right? Why don't more people do that?
Not a bad idea. Well, risks like inflation, volatility, healthcare costs, taxes, those are so out of our control, or can feel out of our control so often. How are you talking with individuals about these things, steps that they need to take to kind of work towards understanding them better?
Yeah, it's a great point. And you just mentioned a lot of things that could impact someone's portfolio or their income and their livelihood. If you start with inflation, I would just kind of go along the lines of, if you just go back a few years ago when inflation peaked at just over 9%, I think it's important just to reflect on that for a second. And what that would mean is if you have $100,000 just sitting in cash or sitting in a bank account that maybe isn't earning any interest on January 1st of that year, and then you look at the purchasing value of that $100,000 on December 31st of the same year, well, on January 1st, you could go out and buy $100,000 worth of goods with that $100,000. And just 12 months later, you'd only be able to buy around $91,000 worth of goods. And that's just because
significant.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about that. I mean, that was an extreme year. We look at inflation, it averages around 2.2% the last 5 decades or so. So there's some erosion there. It's not quite as bad as that one extreme situation, but it's something you have to be aware of, correct? You also need to consider other areas, like you mentioned, long-term care, health care, volatility in the market. Talk about volatility in the market for a minute. I think it's fair to say that over the last 50 years, there's been a lot more up years in the stock market than there have been down years. But we're going to talk a little bit about just the impact of down years as well, and how they can slow down your ability to really maintain your portfolio value over time, and why you want to just maybe hedge a little bit against some of those bigger losses that can occur. And the healthcare factor, I think we all know that most people will be eligible for long-term care, but most people don't have long-term care insurance. And so as we age, we should be considering the cost of long-term care and what those opportunities and obligations might look like.
Okay, coming off of that topic, the long-term care, our lifespans are longer now. We're living longer. It's great news if you have your health with you and your mental being, but that faces more challenges, that the income has to last just as long, and the plan has to work with inflation.
The way I like to phrase that with my clients is I just simply ask the individuals that are in front of me, when do you think you may pass away? And it's a kind of an uncomfortable question. But what I find to be very unusual is that when I ask them when they think they may pass away, they come back with the age of, say, 87. And then I ask them, well, how old were your parents when they passed away, or your grandparents? And many times they come back and their parents were actually still alive or living in their 90s. So it's a real concern, because why would we think that we're not going to live as long as our parents, or possibly longer? And we need to be able to plan accordingly. So your financial plan should certainly take into consideration a reasonable age in which you need those assets to live, to avoid getting to a point of no return, which is essentially a point where you've depleted your assets, so there's really nothing you can do at that point but just cut back on your lifestyle and cut back on your income from those assets.
I'm hearing a common theme as we talk about this important topic: planning ahead, being prepared, forward thinking. It just all really does start with that plan, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And so having a financial plan, I'd say, is extremely important to everybody that has a need to fall back on their own assets. And so what I mean by that is, when you're working, you're going to find that you have the ability to live off your paychecks. But when you make that switch and you celebrate that retirement and you go into living off of your own assets, why wouldn't you have a financial plan in place that incorporates all of your personal needs?
Okay, we're off to a great start. We've got much more to come, so stick around. Jeff will cover a few key strategies coming up to help you preserve your wealth for future generations. And later, Jeff is in the hot seat for Retirement IQ. Stay tuned.
On the surface, your retirement plan might look solid. With your 401k or IRA, Social Security, investments, and insurance coverage, you appear to have it all covered. But what could you be missing? Below the surface, is your retirement exposed to too much risk? It's time for a deeper dive into your portfolio. We can help you uncover the risk that lies beneath the surface and learn about strategies to help preserve your savings. Get your free risk analysis today.
When it comes to planning for the future, time may not always be on your side. Think about your taxes. Tax rates are historically low right now, but they'll likely be higher in the future. Our current tax rates are set to expire in just a few short years. With the right planning and strategy, you might be able to cut your tax bill in the years to come. But don't wait until it's too late to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. Let us be your partner in planning for tomorrow, so you can enjoy your retirement today.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy. But with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work toward your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
In today's economy, it's more important than ever to have a financial strategy in place. Today's show is all about key strategies to help you preserve your wealth for yourself and for your loved ones in the future. Let's get into this. Wealth preservation strategies. It sounds like a great idea to preserve that wealth we've worked so hard to save during our working years, and now we're in retirement. What does that look like?
It can be rather complex depending on the size of the portfolio and what the assets might look like. But at the end of the day, it really starts with just ensuring that goals are understood and needs are understood for the individuals that we're working with. And once we're able to understand the goals and needs of each person that we're working with, then it's a matter of actually putting together a financial plan. But that plan needs to be backed by alignment between the risk that the client is comfortable taking, what they should be taking for the risk that they can afford, and then actually how their portfolio is aligned. And how we do that is we actually utilize software that will allow us to quantify the portfolio themselves that they're in versus the risk that they're willing to take. And so to make sense of that, let's just say that you and I are sitting down and I'm going through a questionnaire with you, and with that digital questionnaire, you're getting asked a series of questions about risk and tolerance and so forth, and in a matter of a few minutes, we're able to quantify a number, and that number ranges from 1 to 99. 1 would be ultra conservative, 99 would be ultra aggressive, and most clients will fall somewhere between maybe the range of 30 and 75. Well, if you are a risk score of 30, I think it'd be really important to ensure that the risk that you're taking in your portfolio is that of something similar to a 30. So put it this way, if you're out on the highway and the speed limit's 65 and you're comfortable doing the speed limit of 65 and that's what you think you're doing, but you don't have a speedometer, and then you realize later, because maybe you get pulled over, that you're really doing 100 and you're
Big
surprised,
difference.
right? Well, that all is the same when it comes to finances. And so we want to quantify your risk. We want to make sure there's alignment with that risk that you're willing to take and what you should be taking. And then we want to make sure that your portfolio is properly diversified. And of course, we're going to look at an income plan that's tax sensitive.
I love that analogy. I'll think about that the next time my speedometer maybe is not working or I'm not paying attention to it. Tell us more about diversifying. You've brought that word up a couple times when it comes to our investment portfolios. And this can look different for every single person you sit down and work with, I realize, but how do you know what is the right way to diversify?
Yeah, so I can talk very specifically about diversification in the market and then also diversification as a whole for a portfolio. As the Chief Investment Officer, when I place a trade, that trade could be for $250 million in one trade. And that gets a little nerve-wracking, but you got to make sure ahead of time that everything's in place and that we're confident in the decisions we've made.
Pushing the button hard.
Absolutely. You push that button really hard to make sure it goes through. And the nice part is that we just remove emotion from all of that. But when it comes back to diversification in a portfolio, I would suggest, given that there's 11 sectors to the stock market, that everybody's in at least 6 of those 11 sectors at any given time. There's a lot of study, there's a lot of proof that indicates that that is proper diversification from an equity exposure standpoint, and that you'd want to maintain some exposure possibly to your large, mid, and small cap sectors or markets, I should say. On top of that, we also want to look at the bond sector. So bonds being supposedly a bit more defensive, but there's risk that goes with bonds, and that risk overlaps with duration, which is how long is that bond before it matures. And then there's also risk from a standpoint of the credit worthiness of those companies that you are essentially loaning money to.
A lot of our viewers may have heard of insurance being used as a potential strategy for wealth preservation, and I think it maybe is a conversation that's become a little more at the forefront. And maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like it's more of a conversation these days. How does that work?
Yeah, I agree with you. 20 years ago when I got into this industry, using insurance products, for us as a firm, we just didn't find it as common as we do today. And I think it's because clients are really looking for ways to remove some risk from their portfolio and not just limit risk. So obviously insurance products are not necessarily suitable for everybody, but for some they might be looking for a way to help insure against the unexpected. So from a standpoint of life insurance, from others, they might be looking at the insurance of their needs, their healthcare concerns. So they might be looking at long-term care insurance that would kick in at some point in their life if they ever got to that. And then for others, they're looking really for that fixed income strategy. And the reason is simple. You worked your whole life, you went in day after day and got your paycheck every 2 weeks, and then you turned off that paycheck when you retired. So why not consider replacing that paycheck with a fixed income source that could be guaranteed for the rest of your life or potentially the rest of your life and your spouse's life if you care to do so.
All great information. You've really given us a lot to think about today, Jeff. And what I've heard kind of as an overlying theme is the word risk, how it fits into so much of this as we start to thinking about preserving our wealth, getting into retirement. And then as those years go by, it changes a little bit more too.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's part of it is over time, I think everything changes. And so it's important with that plan that when you create that financial plan and you do that for your client, that it's not something that should be a stamp of approval and a signature and we sign off and we're good to go. It's really meant to be addressed on an annual basis or every 6 months to ensure that as things change, like your risk tolerance might change, maybe when we go back to that analogy of a speedometer, maybe when you're younger, you're willing to go a little faster.
Were you?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's possible.
And as we get older, maybe for good reason. Maybe we're not as reactive, so maybe we should be going a little slower, correct? So we have to address those things as well when we're dealing with finances.
All right, thank you so much. Great information. Straight ahead, Jeff is back. He's in the hot seat for Retirement IQ. And later, what are some simple, actionable steps you can take to potentially help improve your financial future today? Jeff has your checklist challenge. Stay with us.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy, but with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work toward your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
On the surface, your retirement plan might look solid. With your 401k or IRA, Social Security, investments, and insurance coverage, you appear to have it all covered. But what could you be missing? Below the surface, is your retirement exposed to too much risk? It's time for a deeper dive into your portfolio. We can help you uncover the risk that lies beneath the surface and learn about strategies to help preserve your savings. Get your free risk analysis today.
When it comes to planning for the future, time may not always be on your side. Think about your taxes. Tax rates are historically low right now, but they'll likely be higher in the future. Our current tax rates are set to expire in just a few short years. With the right planning and strategy, you might be able to cut your tax bill in the years to come. But don't wait until it's too late to take advantage of today's lower tax rates. Let us be your partner in planning for tomorrow so you can enjoy your retirement today.
And now it's time to put our knowledge to the test with this week's Retirement IQ. This is a great opportunity for you to learn a little extra about maybe something we talked about earlier in the show, as well as maybe, who knows what's in this list of cards that I have to ask Jeff. Are you ready for this?
I sure am.
Okay. You're so let's go.
Let's make it happen.
Here we go. This is true or false. The cost of everything doubles about every 20 years.
True and false.
Okay. Explain yourself.
True, because it's probably assuming somewhere around a 2% rate of inflation, which is accurate when you look at the last 50 years or so. False, because I couldn't agree that everything doubles every 20 years. If you look at the cost of education, being a father of 7 kids, I know for a fact that their educations have grown at a cost that's significantly above 2%. It's kind of crazy when you look at it, and maybe a little unfair as well.
Yes.
And then I think for the purpose of today, if we look at the cost of long-term care, given the pressure that's put on the long-term care industry with the baby boomer demographics, the costs there have grown significantly above that 2% as well.
And wouldn't you say that inflation, as we talk about that topic, it used to be a little bit maybe in the background of our thoughts, of our portfolios. Now it's very much in our faces. You'd kind of be crazy if you didn't know a little bit about it and how it could impact your portfolio?
Yeah, I think inflation is important to understand, especially from the standpoint of just how it does impact your portfolio. And what I mean by that is if inflation's at 2, 3, 4%, well, then you need to earn at least 2, 3, 4% after tax in order to keep up with inflation. So just understanding that if you're making 5% in an investment and inflation is 3%, you're not actually earning a net 5%. You might be earning something closer to 1.5 or 2.
Also, good reason to check back in on your portfolio from time to time with your advisor.
Fair.
All right, next question, true or false? Medicare covers all long-term care expenses.
I don't believe Medicare actually covers any long-term care expense.
That is correct. It is false. Long-term care is not covered by Medicare or most health insurance. So there's a lot we could dive into here.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate reality is when we get to that point of not being able to function for 2 of 6 daily ADLs, it's really too late to try to do anything in many cases. You're going to rely on your current assets, you're going to rely on friends and family. So that's why it's important, I think, while you're in your 50s and 60s, maybe while you're in your 70s and you're still in good health, that you consider possibly insuring against that potential risk. There's 2 ways to insure against it that I typically will fall back on with clients. One is that you just look at it like buying traditional insurance where you pay a premium every month or you pay a premium once a year, and those premiums may very well go up over time. And you may lose those benefits in the event that you don't actually get to a point in your life where you qualify to utilize them. And the other is to use a policy in which you don't have a use it or lose it type scenario. And you'll end up putting a certain amount of premium into that policy. And if you end up needing it, then you'll have the leverage of the long-term care kicking in. And if you don't need it, then there's a return of that premium that's paying back to your heirs or to the estate at your passing, and therefore you don't get to that point where you're really losing what you put into it. And I really prefer to go that direction because I feel better about that for my clients when possible.
Okay, we've got one more here. This is also true or false. The 60-40 rule of thumb means you invest in the stock market when you're 40 and buy bonds when you're 60.
That's a fun one, huh?
I like that.
Yeah, so
I didn't make these up, but I like that.
I'd really be curious to see who out there is a firm believer of that. So the 60-40 rule just means if you're somewhat of a moderate investor and you're invested in the market, that you may have somewhere around 60% of your money invested in stocks and 40% of that in bonds from a diversification standpoint.
It was very cleverly written, though.
I think so.
And now people are wondering whether their age applies to their risk level. But this has been fun. Great information as always. Thank you so much. And still to come, you'll learn some of the simple steps you can take today to potentially help you improve your situation. Because how useful is knowledge without action? Stay tuned.
Planning for retirement can be complicated. Helping create income that lasts, making sure your health care is covered, investing while managing risk, and don't forget about taxes. If you're overwhelmed, you're not alone. The good news is we have what you need to give you confidence to start planning for your ideal retirement, all in one convenient resource. You'll get answers to some of your biggest retirement questions in this easy-to-understand, practical resource. And best of all, there's no cost to you. Take the first step toward a confident retirement and get yours today.
On the surface, your retirement plan might look solid. With your 401k or IRA, Social Security, investments, and insurance coverage, you appear to have it all covered. But what could you be missing? Below the surface, is your retirement exposed to too much risk? It's time for a deeper dive into your portfolio. We can help you uncover the risk that lies beneath the surface and learn about strategies to help preserve your savings. Get your free risk analysis today.
How does your future look in retirement? When you don't have a strategy, the future might look a little fuzzy. But with someone asking the right questions and helping you learn where you truly stand, it can become easier to work toward your goals. You need a plan to help generate income that will last as long as you need it. And the first step to creating an income plan is an analysis of where you are now. Let us help you bring your retirement into focus with your free income analysis today.
Thanks for joining us today on Retirement Made Simple with Jeff Buck. And it has been really informative today, getting a better understanding of some of the key strategies to help us preserve our wealth, to help you preserve your wealth. And I think that we've all learned a lot. And as the saying goes, knowledge is
Power?
Right.
There you go.
You're still in retirement IQ mode here.
Jeez,
This
that's
is good.
amazing. I just nailed that.
This is good.
Yeah, I agree that knowledge is power, but I agree that it's only power if you actually apply it. And it's really unfortunate when people take a bunch of great information in and they do nothing to truly apply that information towards their personal needs. So to talk through that, I'd like to maybe end today's segment on 3 steps that you could take and that the viewers can take to maybe apply some of the knowledge that they've walked away with today.
All right, let us know what we need to take away from the show.
Perfect. So I'd suggest that what we'd want to focus on to start is really ask yourself, do you have a financial plan? So mentally, you've probably considered some of your investments throughout the conversation today, and maybe what do you have that's put in your bank accounts and your CDs, your savings and so forth? What do you have that's possibly in your retirement accounts? And what do you have that might be outside of retirement? But the question isn't what do you have in assets and what are they worth? The question is really what does that financial plan look like? And importantly, does that plan align with your risk? So does that plan align with your risk? Because if it's not aligned with your personal risk, well, going back to that analogy earlier, could you possibly be doing 100 when you mean to be doing 50 or 60 on the highway? And when will you find out if that's the case?
Great knowledge is power. And I think about someone coming in, taking this knowledge, wanting to come in, sit down with your team at EA Buck Financial Services. What do they need to bring? They want to have that knowledge as well, because I do believe some people just are hesitant to make that first step because they don't know what they need.
That's true. And so to come back to it, to make sure I answer the first question about the 3 items, understand, do you have a financial plan? Is your plan aligned with your risk, and does it incorporate a tax strategy? And so those are the 3 items. As far as it goes with what you might want to bring into the office, well, first of all, we'd love for you to bring your spouse if you're married, because we think it's really important that we get the opportunity to meet the 2 of you, and that's not always the case. Sometimes people want just one person in there. And then just know that we're open to having that first conversation, and after that first conversation, identify what it is that you might want to bring along with you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. With everything going on in our world today, it's no wonder if you're concerned about preserving your wealth for your future and for your loved ones. Jeff and his team can help you develop wealth preservation strategies so you can spend your time doing what you love with the people who matter most to you. For Jeff and the team at EA Buck Financial Services, I'm Amy Sharp. Have a great week, everyone, and we'll see you next time.